Hello and welcome back to the building of the Cirrus Moth, a design by David Boddington. And as you can see, if you've been watching so far, the fuselage core structure has now been built. I've had a slight detour and I've put together the vac formed cowl, which obviously fits on, I'll turn it round, fits on the front here. Obviously the whole thing needs to be trimmed up and shaped, and some of the height will need to be taken off it, but I can put that to one side now. I thought it would be nice to get on the turtle decking at the rear. This is supplied in the form of a rather nice piece of plywood. I think it's 1/64th thickness. It's very good quality. They've even shaped the angle of the curvature at the back and at the front, which I think it'll need to be trimmed anyway at the front. And that goes on here. And I'm going to do that now, but there's something struck me that's going to cause an issue. Well, the first one, it's not a big deal. These formers don't allow anything for the thickness of the plywood. Now there's not a great deal needed, but there is some, so I'll need to sand off on these formers to make sure that there's room for the decking to be attached. And the other thing that strikes me, if it's glued on here, there's nothing really to secure it in these sections. And I've got a suspicion that it might either bow in or bulge out because of that. So what I propose doing is putting a very narrow strip of wood on here all the way around to give something for the decking to be glued to. So I'm going to proceed cleaning this up and getting that wood glued on, and then we'll come back and I'll actually make a start on forming the decking. I've now removed a little bit of the formers to allow for the thickness of the plywood, and I'm going to use this 1/8 square section spruce to form a surface for the edges of the plywood to be stuck to. It's nice and tough, it's very lightweight, there's not a lot of it, and one length will probably do the whole job. So I'll crack on and do that. We'll get that glued in place, and then it'll be time to add the turtle decking. And there we have it. So I now have a surface that I can actually glue this plywood decking to, and I think that's going to aid enormously in fixing this in place. So next thing is, how am I going to go about doing this? Well, even though this is very thin, I think it would still benefit from being steamed. So what I'm going to do is wet this side, just one side of it, the outer surface, steam it, which will induce a curve, which is particularly useful in this part, and then we'll have a go and see how the fit goes from there. I hope you can see now, this side has had water applied to it, and I've added some steam. I've steamed it for a few seconds, and you can see how much more malleable it is and how it's taken the form that we're looking for. So if I offer this up now, I've got a much better idea of how well it's going to fit and how much, if any, needs to be taken off. And I'm sure there will be some that needs to be removed. Yes, there is. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue it halfway round. I'm going to glue half of it and get it in position, and then take the surplus off with it in situ, so to speak. And I'm thinking how I'm going to do this. I think I'll perhaps do it by simply holding it in position. What I want to do is keep the edge in contact with the strip that I've placed on here. I may not do half, I might just do tack one side. I know it's going to go around, it's not going to end up short. It's taking a nice form there, so let's get cracking. It won't get done unless I start. These applicators, by the way, are a godsend. You can buy them in bulk from some of the online stores. They mean that you don't get CA glue everywhere, which obviously we want to avoid. They're less wasteful, and if they clog, which inevitably they do, you simply snip the end off to form a new tube. Let's get this on. Invariably sticks to fingers better than it does to wood, but you know, it's par for the course. And without that lip to glue to, I think this would have been nigh on impossible. I think we just about have it there. It may be pulling away at the end that I'm holding. If it does, I'll use a bit of zapper, CE activation spray, which is good for stubborn parts, but actually I think that's glued. I'll give it a few seconds, then we'll flick it over and we'll start gluing around. Fortunately, you can get to the inside, so that's not a big deal. I have heard that one technique is to use something like Mod Podge onto the formers and then apply heat through the plywood, and that reactivates the Mod Podge. I think I saw it on one of Cliff Harvey's videos where a chap was making a really large glider and he had to plywood sheet the wing, and he discovered that technique. It's something I will use when the opportunity arises, but this I think will work simply with the CA glue. Pause it there and then we'll flick it over. What I'm trying to do here is pull the sheeting over to the surface, and then I'm going to apply some CA using its capillary ability to glue this one down. Then I'll pull to this one and so on. That one seems to be working rather well, so I can pull to the next one. Hope you can see it there. And I'll do the same thing. And here you can see the advantage of these applicators. It's a bit like the proboscis mouth parts of a moth. You can get into those parts you wouldn't normally be able to reach. Yeah, I'm happy with that. It's going to pull away slightly here, but that's not the end of the world. That can be filled. And then I'm moving back to, don't know if you can see that. Let's see if we can get back to you actually seeing what I'm doing. It is more difficult modelling and videoing at the same time, but it adds to the enjoyment for me now. I've got into doing it. So adding the glue, and this is so thin I can actually feel the heat of the chemical reaction coming through the wood, which tells me that it's starting to bite. Sure enough, we're at the halfway mark here. Starting to go over nicely. You can see the degree of overlap, but that's not a big deal. That can be removed later on. Let's do a little bit more. Take it round a little bit more. Slowly, slowly, catches monkey is the saying, I believe. A little bit at a time. Of course, this will add enormously to the strength, I would imagine. Not that it's a weak design. It's David Boddington one, after all. He tends to make nice models. I'm holding it there. So I'll carry on all the way around until we get to the point of the surplus, and then I'll show you how I'm going to tackle that. I've now managed to pull the decking all the way around. As you can see, there's a surplus, and there is a slight pull away here, which I'll resolve shortly. But I'm happy with that. I've got to cut the surplus off now. So it cannot be done without a really sharp blade. So however sharp that one is, I'm replacing it. And I can attest it's sharp because I've just cut myself on it. So there's a new blade in. I've got a long rule here. I could try and do it in one cut. That might be very risky. So I might pare it down just as close as I can. I'll move this round a little. Hopefully you can still see. I'll go as close as I can, and then we'll take it from there. That's it, we're through there. Let's see how it comes off. Yeah, there's still a smidgen to come off. It's easier to take wood off than it is to stick it back on, as I'm going to have to do on the other side. So it's fine there, fine there. Needs a little bit taking off where my thumb is. Here, 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 here. It just needs a slither taking off. So I'll do that and then we'll crack back to it. I think I have the makings of a neat joint now, so let's apply some glue into that joint. May take a couple of goes at this, but we'll see. Now that's become clogged and that's it. It was restricting the applicator working properly. So let's try again. Let's do it like a zipper. A little bit at a time. It's always the way to go, I think. Oh, I can actually get the grip round there if I'm careful. You can hear it popping where it hasn't quite taken. Bit of tape and some PVA glue might be the answer here, but we'll see. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. Just for this last part, because I can't really get the glue in properly the way I need to. We'll see. Don't give up yet. Let's use this straight edge to apply a little bit of even pressure. Sometimes the parts that you have to struggle with are the most satisfying when they're done. This hasn't been a major struggle, but it takes a little bit of thought. Yeah, that's working. Let's try and work back here again. See if we can get it to work this time. Use the straight edge to apply even pressure. Without that lip, I think this would be extremely difficult, and you would always have the problem of either the plywood bowing out when the covering goes on or pushing in. So I think it's necessary. I think it's an omission in the design, actually. That's worked. There you go. Still not going off it. Funny super glue or CE, if you apply too much it doesn't work as well. And obviously I've flooded a little bit too much in there. Just hold it on a little bit longer. Well, you're literally watching glue dry now, aren't you? I'll pause it there and I'll keep on working along and then we'll see the finished product. And finally, well, there we have it. That's the decking, the turtle decking at the rear fitted. I think it adds greatly to the appearance and the strength. I'll repeat the process for this. After the cabin area's been added, I've trimmed some surplus off. I have a little gap to fill, which side is it, with a scrap of balsa, which I'll sand down, and that'll blend in. But overall, that was fairly painless. It's starting to look like a fuselage now, and it's certainly starting to look moth-like. So I hope that's been useful to people if you've never tried it before. The steaming helps enormously, as does decent quality plywood, obviously. But you can use the same technique with balsa. It's perhaps a little easier to work with. It's less resilient to bouncing back. But steam's the clue. Wet the outer surface, add steam, and you'll get a nice finish. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe. You'll see the rest of the journey doing that. And if you don't mind giving it a thumbs up, it encourages other people to see it via the YouTube algorithms. Bye for now. Have fun flying if you can. If not, let's get creative.